மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.
I mentioned earlier in the exchange variation that there was a system for white whereby the bishop on f1 came to d3 and which made it very difficult for black to get a good square for the bishop on c8. Now that of course, just to remind you, occurs after bishop e7 and now bishop d3. Well, in the game Meylan versus Sedina, played in Capelle in March 2011, we see black employing our recommended move order with knight c6. Now white playing bishop e3. And I can't help but feel that black's best move should be bishop f5 here. But Sedina allows white to play bishop d3. And so this is quite an interesting game from our point of view. What happens here when black is actually encouraging white to play this setup with bishop d3 and knight e2? Well, it's slightly different to the one that I mentioned earlier because white's already played the bishop to e3. And this gives black a few tactical opportunities in this precise position after bishop g4. And the tactical opportunities crop up when white plays f3. Now this looks like a simple gain of time, but in fact that's not the case. And black can launch quite an interesting assault here after bishop h4 check. If white now plays g3, black has the very tactical move, rook e8. And I think this gives black a good attack in all lines. Possibly this was the line Sedina was playing for. The point is that if white takes both bishops, then after queen takes h4 check, the king has to go to d2. And this runs into the superb move, rook takes d3 check. This is actually a line worth remembering because it seems to lead to, if not a forced win, then certainly a position where white is very uncomfortable. Now clearly if the king comes back to d2 in this position, we get knight takes c4 check, king c1, and then the ruinous queen g5 check. So the king has to come to e3, and this walks straight into rook e8 check. And after king f3, knight takes c4. The fact that white's a rook up in this position is quite irrelevant, as both of the white rooks aren't even playing in the game, and black's just got a vicious attack with rook e3 coming in. For instance, if knight g3 to block out the queen, we get a check. The king goes back, and now rook takes c3 is a very strong move. So I think that was black's intention after f3. Therefore, Meylan castles, and Sedina plays a careful move here, bishop h5. Alright, b3 was answered by bishop f6, and after rook c1 we get the typical Alekhine move here, putting a break on the white advance in the centre with d5. Well, it seems to me that black is in reasonable shape here. All the minor pieces are developed. This is an ideal position for the stronger player to outplay a weaker opponent because virtually nothing has been exchanged. It's just a very complex position. As usual, white presses forward on the queen side and Sedina redeploys her knight. Usually that knight will come to a square like f5 in due course to put pressure on both d4 and e3. So queen d2 was played, knight e7, knight f4. In general here, white is looking to advance the queenside pawns to gain space and cramp black. So that explains the motivation behind white's next move. White brings the queen up quite carefully. And we're just getting a complex Alekhine position here after b4 and then a6. Sedina seems to handle this position carefully enough and brings her knight to e6. Alright, well there are a couple of exchanges. Probably suited Meylan, as he was thinking of trying to get a draw here against a much stronger player. But the trouble with exchanging off all the pieces against a really strong player is that there's no guarantee of a draw. The best way to try and get a draw, if you're the weaker player in a game against a much stronger opponent, is to keep things complicated. Then, if you get the upper hand somehow by some tactical ideas, you can always offer the draw from a position of tactical strength. But just to play into a position like this, which is purely technical, one open file, symmetrical pawns, not a lot going on. This is the type of situation where you're going to get outplayed by a really strong player. And this is precisely what happens in this game. Now, Meylan plays knight g3. I'm not sure that's the best square for the knight. I don't see what the knight's doing on that square, really. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything. It's not pressurising black. Maybe knight f4 was better. And that probably just maintains in quality after rook a e8 and then rook h8. I mean, black is not worse here, but she's not better either. Knight g3, well, probably white's not worse after this as well, but I don't know. Knight f5 seems to me Sedina's just taking all the sting out of the position, and you know, what will be will be. Maybe there is some hope of outplaying white here. White's pawns look a little bit weaker than black's pawns, but you can't help but feel in a game between two grandmasters this would have to be a draw. Nevertheless, that's the problem for white. Sedina's not going to agree to a draw. The game continues. Black puts the rook in on e4, and even if white offered the draw here, there's no way that black was going to accept. The game just carries on. So rook f4. All right, maybe the best way to try and make a draw here was to go rook fe3. Then if black plays rook e8, we go rook e2, queen f5, and then f3, promoting exchanges. There's not a lot going on here. This should end in a draw. But after rook f4, okay, black plays rook e8. There's an exchange on e4, queen c3, queen d5. And you see already, over the past few moves, white has slipped a little bit into a position of slight inferiority. I don't like the position of that pawn on d4. I think that's going to cause white some trouble in this position. Added to which, black has got a mobile kingside pawn majority, which could also give white some problems. White's queenside pawn chain is slightly stymied. There's no real adequate way for white to arrange the move b5, and without that move, he's not going to break into black's camp. So black has all the options in this position. It's probably not a lot, but it's something for Sedina to work with. So rook d8, g3, queen e6, and now black just repositions her major pieces. She's not doing very much at the moment, just manoeuvring, waiting for something to turn up. White can do absolutely nothing. We're waiting to see what black's going to do here. Queen c3, and the conundrum is answered by f4. Suddenly again, white is under pressure. After queen d2, black played f takes g3, and queen f6 is again tying white down. Now the threats include queen f3 check, and white's got to continue to monitor d4, so queen e3 is probably the only move, and now comes queen e6. There's a little bit of toing and froing, and black gets her queen in. And from now on, it's very awkward for white. Well, white was under pressure. You know, he really sowed the seeds of his own downfall here by taking on e4 at the moment that he did. And since then, it's been downhill all the way. His position's getting worse and worse and worse, to the point at which queen g2 now gives black a very serious advantage. The queen is on the rook, the queen is on the g-pawn. And with queen e1, the only move to protect both, now black plays queen c2 and infiltrates the white position even further. Queen d2, well, the white queen's getting overloaded. That is the problem. Black's going to win that pawn on d4, come what may. And with it goes the last hope for white. In comes the black rook. Now, not only is black a pawn up, she's also got the more active rook. Rook f3, rather hopeless. I mean, I suppose black could even trade that, but Sedina finds a much better way. f5, king f4, rook a4, and well, black is just winning another pawn in this position by force. So that's an object lesson, really, in how to make something for nothing. That's why Sedina is much higher rated than Meylan. She kept the game going in a position that was probably drawn, but where there were some germs of hope, and won the game nicely in the end. So just to recap, if white adopts this precise move order, you can go bishop f5 as black, but you can even allow white to get this set up with knight e2, as it seems that after bishop g4, f3, black's got this nice tactical line with bishop h4 check, and this seems to put white to the sword.
மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. தேங்க்யூ.